Joomla 1.6. Joomla 1.6 Access Control, brought to you by the following sponsors. Thanks guys. Rockin', the official web host of Joomla. Jetler, the Joomla Enterprise layer. CMS Association, host of the CMS Expo, helping you connect to the CMS community. Business Geeks, make the most of your technology. And Studio Solutions, advertising, web and video. And now for our host, the Master Chef of Joomla, Mr. Andrew Eddy.
Welcome again to this talk. What I'm going to be covering is an overview of what's in the new access control system, looking primarily at users, groups, access levels, global configuration, permissions that we looked at in the previous talk, going down to what you can do in the component, and then what you can do in categories and also articles. There's lots of different layers to the access control system, and the wonderful thing is you can stop at whatever layer you want. So anyway, let's have a look at the user manager. This is a very familiar view that you should be used to in 1.6. As I said this morning, there's a couple of new toys with activation and that sort of stuff. But when you go into the user, you'll start to see some very interesting changes. And the first thing is you've got the ability to select multiple groups. So in Joomla we've both allowed, in 1.6 we've allowed you to create your own groups, and you can assign people to multiple groups. When you assign a person to a deep group, they are also inherited in the groups above that, which trace all the way back to the public group. Everybody is in the public group, but not everybody has to be in the registered group. That's important for thinking about how permissions are going to be handled later. So that's really the only change in there, small but quite profound in scale. So where we define our groups is here. We just have a group manager, and it's just like any of the other tree systems we've got, the categories or the menus tree. We have a hierarchical system of defining groups. And out of the box, 1.6 will have exactly the same groups as 1.5, because we want to, for people who know Joomla, we want them to feel comfortable with what's there. So we've made an attempt to bring across everything in 1.5 in 1.6 to see how that's been set up. And we can create a new group here called, I like to pick on National Park Rangers. We save and close, and we can see that's straight off the public, so you don't have to come off registered if you don't want to. These groups actually mean nothing to Joomla 1.6 anymore, except public. Public is sort of have special significance. But 1.5 was sort of aware of what a super administrator group was as a group itself. It was aware of what an author was or what an editor was. But in 1.6, it doesn't really care. These are just names, and within each group, you just set appropriate permissions. We'll have a look at some of those permissions in a minute. So I actually don't want, having said all that, I might put Park Rangers under registered, because that shows me from an organisational point of view that this is a set of particular registered users. As I said, you don't necessarily have to have that coming off registered. In fact, you can delete all of these groups except for public and registered on your website, on your Joomla site. And you could make, for example, lockdown the front-end access, give nobody front-end access, and a registered user could assume super administrator rights. So it's that flexible. The third part to the, whoops, there we go. The third part to the user, the access control system is the ability now to add custom access levels. So an item of content in 1.5 could be put in public, registered and special, and very difficult to extend that in a meaningful way because there was a special meaning attached to special and very difficult to get around. However, in 1.6 we can create a new access level called, confidential. So my park ranger is going to be able to see confidential information like the secret location of the Wallamai Pine Grove and wherever it is. I think my brother knows where it is, but he won't tell me. Yeah, so the access level, we can define a new access level. It's a flat list. There is no tree relationship here. But the access level is concerned with what content you can view. And how we've done this is, for each access level, you can define which groups of users can see this content. So in this case, I only want the park rangers to see this content. So that's all I'm going to assign to there. Let's have a look at some of the others. Or actually, public is special because we don't need it. If we have a look at registered, the registered access level, a manager can see it and a registered user can see it. And because I said before what the group that a user is in inherits back up the tree, it means that the registered can be seen by the admins and the super users or the super admins, and can also be seen by the authors and editors and publishers because somebody is implied to be in those groups going back up the tree. Close that. And special, okay, we've manually selected those. Managers and those three groups can see them. Okay. Okay, so what I might do is we'll do the access levels first, the content that you can view. We'll explore how you can do that, and then we'll have a look at the permission system, which is about what you, as opposed to what you can see, it's looking at what you can actually do. Things like editing, creating, logging into the site, being able to get into individual components. So we'll just look at the access levels first. And I've got no content in here. I've refreshed my site because when you're dealing with the permissions, it's probably easier to start with fresh data. We'll do the just a dummy article, the obligatory hello world. This is a cool website. We'll publish that, and we'll save that. And we'll just need to, okay, so the front end menu is a featured article, so let's just make that featured. And with luck, we've got that displaying on the front end. It's a public article. When we log in, we should still be able to see that, and that's fine. Okay, so we'll log out. What I'm going to do is create another user. Very quickly. And I'm going to put this person in the registered group and also in the park rangers. Well, actually I didn't have to do the registered group because the park rangers is below the registered, so it inherited automatically. So Andrew's a park ranger. I can save and close that. Go back to our access levels. We can remember that confidential can be seen only by the park rangers. Okay, so let's go and create a new article. called secret places. Now the access, we're going to put this in the confidential access level, and this is secret rangers information. Okay, and we're going to make this a featured article as well, so it turns up on the front page. Save and close. We'll publish that, and we'll just go back to the home, and it doesn't display. This is all good so far. Now, if I log in as me, and I'm a super admin, I can't see it, and I'm a super admin. So that's showing that, you know, even super admins can be locked out of certain things that you can view. So we'll log out. Now I'll log in as Mr. Ranger. With luck, the formatting's a bit strange, but that article is actually there. I've now got access to content that is accessible by no other person in any other user group. Okay, everybody happy with that? Awesome. I should say it's the last improvement we had to the access control system was in Mambo 4.5.0, which came out in Christmas of 2003. It's taken us this long to get there. It won't be perfect, but I think it's a good start. And be merciful that it doesn't do everything that you want it to do. So that's it for view content. So that's really, really quite simple. We wanted to keep the formula of simplicity that 1.5 has. The access level is actually a really, it's quite a good system. It's just not, you can't change it. That's the only problem with it. And the marrying with the access level with the user group is a compromise over keeping the interface simple. Versus we could have got a lot more granularity in the access control, but your user interface would have got a lot more complicated, and we're just a little bit hesitant to go down that track. We may very well go down that in 1.7, but as I said, we've taken nearly 5 years to get here. This is a good first step, and I think it will cover 90% of the cases that people want to do. So that's it for view levels. The other part of the access control system is what you can actually do. And this is where this permissions tab that we kept on seeing and all of the different areas of content comes into play. Now in 1.6, as I said, the permission system is layered. I think it's quite different from a lot of other CMSs which have the big matrix style tick and flick. We've taken the approach where if you want to keep the access controls simple, you can. If you want to make them complicated and hard to manage, or more work to manage, you can also do that as well. It's completely up to you. But where we start is in global configuration. And this is, global configuration is the only place you need to mimic the 1.5 style of permissions. And what we have is, at this level, we have 8 what we call core permissions. And those are site login, being able to, a user in a group can log into the site. A user in a group can log into the administrator. At this level, the admin permission effectively says users in this group are super users, or if you're used to Unix, they're a root user. They have power to do anything, irregardless of what any other permission is set. The manage permission allows users in this group to access all areas of the administrator, all components, the module managers, every area, the user manager, etc. That obviously needs to be coupled with the ability to actually log in to the administrator. Without that, it would be a little bit useless. And then we have four content-related permissions. Create. Users in this group are allowed to create any content, or content includes modules and menus and that sort of things. Users are allowed to delete any content in any component. They're allowed to edit any content in any extension. And they're also allowed to edit the state, the published state, maybe the ordering or some other related information anywhere in any content. And this all happens at the global level. So you can set it globally and it applies for everything. Now for each permission, we have 3 states. By default, there is no state. And what that no state means, it's an implied deny. By default, you're not allowed to do anything in Joomla. You have to actually specifically tell Joomla what to do. So we have this no state or an implied deny. We have the ability to allow a permission for a user in a group to do something. And we also have the ability to deny the ability to enact this permission. So what you can see here is on this grid, you can see we've allowed certain things. So a manager is allowed to log into the site and the administrator. They're also allowed to create all content, delete all content, edit all content, and edit the published state of all content. Super users are given the global admin permission, which means that they can do anything, and they can do anything irregardless of what any other permission is set. And because they come from manager, they also inherit the ability to log into the site and log into the admin. A registered user is only allowed to log into the site, and that's all. And that's effectively what 1.5 does. That's the limit of the permissions in 1.5. And if you're happy with that, you don't even have to touch any of the permissions in 1.6. You don't have to use any user group. You don't have to use any access levels. You can just keep on using it as is. But what you can do is also, in this area, you can also deny people to do things. And the main thing to realise with deny is when you deny something, it doesn't matter what happens after that, that permission is always denied. The second thing to remember is permissions can be inherited by multiple paths because you're in multiple groups. But if the system finds a deny in one group, it will override the fact that you might be allowed to do it by another path. So in simplistic terms, deny always wins. And how you might use it here is, we'll actually see this deeper, but you might actually allow authors, what you could do is allow an author to create content anywhere, and you could deny an editor to create content. I mean, you wouldn't do that because those have a particular meaning to us in 1.5. But if you do that, then the publisher would also be denied the ability to create content everywhere. And even if you set allow deeper down, this deny up here at the top level will always win. So it's very important to be careful when you set deny at the top level, because it will just carry through everything. But there may very well be reasons why you might do this. Some of the strategies, there's really two strategies in thinking about the permissions in 1.6. One way is to use the implied deny and only allow things, or allow everything. That's one way. So people can't do anything until they're allowed to do it. Or you allow everything and then deny it further down. They're two different ways. And both have strengths and weaknesses depending on what the actual needs of your sites are. And I would expect we'll start to do, we'll have to do some case studies on which technique is better for particular sites. But anyway, we'll move on. So that's at the global, this is at the top level, and this really sets the scene for how the rest of the site is going to act. We've also tried to keep the permissions down to a minimum as well, and we sort of felt that eight permissions was what we needed to emulate what we've got in 1.5. So that's at the global configuration. Let's modify one of our users. Where are you? User manager. Let's make this person Andrew a manager. And you recall I'll show you in a minute. Okay, so we can log out of that. Because I've changed this person to the managed group, I can now log into the back end, and you can see a fairly familiar cut down version of the menu. We can actually access any component, but we're restricted from other things. Okay, so I wonder how that's worked. I can also see that our option button's gone, so I wonder what happened there. All right, well, let's log out, and we'll log back in as our super admin and see what's happening there. So for each component, we have the option button, and we have a permissions tab in the component. And very similar looking permission names, but each of these has a subtle, can have a subtle difference. At the component level, the admin permission means that I can change the options of the component. We don't want everyone fiddling with these options, because some of them are, deal with defaults for the system and defaults for all the views, integration and text filtering and that. We don't want everyone playing with that. So this admin permission controls who can actually access this particular screen. The managed permission means exactly the same, is the same as a global setting, but it's concerned with the context of this component. The managed permission here means users in the selected groups can access this particular component, and create, delete, edit, and edit state all have the same meaning, except within the context of just this component. So what we can see here is managers are allowed to manage or actually physically get to this component in the back end. Administrators are allowed are given the admin permission by this allow, and what that means is that administrators get to change the options. They get to click on that option button for seeing this screen. Super users inherit from administrators. And we can see, what have we allowed here? We've allowed authors to create their own content. We've allowed editors, they can create and edit, because editors inherit create from authors. Not quite sure why that permission's there. And publishers, in addition to inheriting create content and edit content in any category, they're allowed to change the publishing state. And that's exactly the same as what we have in 1.5. Okay, if we had set authors to deny create, deny wins all the way down the tree, and we would kill the ability for these guys to actually create content. But they'd still be allowed to edit the content and change the publishing state. So effectively making that deny also makes that deny, also makes that deny, and would be really cool if we got a patch to make the UI reflect that to help make it a bit easier, but we don't have that at this stage, so better make that allow. Okay, so that's at the component level. Let's turn this one off. A manager can't manage this component. We'll save that. I'll log out. Log back in as me, and content's gone. I can't get to the content. In fact, if I'm sneaky and I know the URL, you're blocked out of the component altogether. Oops. So we'll log back in as my super admin. One of the things that's particularly interesting. Let's have a look here. So we can have a look at the module manager, the options. The only option available in the module manager is the permissions, and we can see we've only allowed the administrators. Administrators inherit manage from global configuration. We haven't allowed the managers to access the module manager, so they can't do it. One thing that's very important to note is when you install a new component, by default, as long as you don't change the permissions, the administrator will be able to access it, but the manager won't. You will have to explicitly allow managers access to all new components in the system. Just something to keep in mind. If you wanted to allow, for example, managers to access every component in the system, where are we? You would need to give them the manage position in global configuration so that you don't have to worry about allowing them into everything. So what you could do is, this is where you might use an allow and then deny technique. You could allow managers access to everywhere and then go into modules and deny them, go into plugins and deny them, go into language manager and deny them. And that way, every component that is installed, they'll inherit the allow permission. It's probably a little bit, needs a diagram, but that's where you'd use that sort of technique. Okay, so that's at the global configuration level, and then we have to have the ability to turn off any component or any area of the administrator in each of the components. So you have to visit each component if you want to selectively turn on and turn off and that sort of thing. The next level down is the category, and then after that is the article level. The categories are universal, so we're allowed to set permissions at the category level, but not everything has permissions at the next level down. Only the article manager manages articles for web links and news feeds and things like that. We didn't really see a need for locking down people's rights to be able to edit a news feed or a web link or that, so we haven't applied it to that layer. but we have given you an example of where to lock it down for at the article level or below categories. So at the category level, we just create a new category. National parks. We'll just save that, see how it goes. All right. We've got a panel in here called the category access rules. This little widget here does actually sort of start to demonstrate how permissions have been inherited from levels up the tree. And within the category, you can set the 4 different permissions. Again, as create, delete, edit, and edit state. Create means you can create subcategories and you can create articles within this category and its subcategories. Same for delete. You can delete this category, you can delete subcategories, and you can delete articles in this or any subcategory. Edit is you can edit this category, you can edit its subcategories, you can edit any article in this or this category or its subcategories. And edit state is, again, you can, in the same way, you can change the publish state in this category, its subcategories, or you can change the state of any articles. And what you can see here is down the left here is what is being inherited from on high. There's a little bit of marker, and then there's a graphical representation of what it is now. And it just, so I mentioned before that deny always wins. This would be a case of, it doesn't matter whether I set that to allow or not, it's always denied because we're inheriting deny. Okay. So what we can do in here is we can set for any user group okay, sorry, what I just said was wrong. And I'm not sure if this is right, but that deny might be an implied deny. We might have to put in some UI to make that a bit clearer. But what we can see here is the park rangers are not allowed to create any content in this category. Now, these permissions apply to the back end as well. They don't just apply to the front end. So you can lock categories and things down in the back end. In the back end, you'll be able to see stuff in other areas, but if you try and click on to edit something that you don't have permission to, you'll get bounced out of it. Okay, so we could allow, for example, specifically allow park rangers to edit content in this category, or to create content. They don't have to have delete, they don't have to have edit, but you could also allow them to edit their own content, but they could have a go at trying to change the publish state, but they won't be allowed to. So let's just see, that I'm pretty sure is an implied deny. If we save that, this is just a summary. So where was our create? Yep, so that's changed to a tick. So that's definitely an implied deny. Let's, we might just, if we change create up here to deny, so I'm denying it from a higher level. I'll save and close that. We'll go back to our category, national parks. With a bit of luck, create's now denied, because you can see that. Yeah, I'll need to change that. But that's actually a hard or explicit deny. And even though I've set allow there, you can see that it's been denied. Sometimes that will work in your favour, sometimes it'll work against you, and you've really just got to try and sort out your user groups and permissions to get the result you want. But I stress, you don't have to go to this level if you don't want to, but if you do, the power is there to be able to do this sort of thing. So if we go to the article level, we can see we've got, in article permissions, we have exactly the same widget, except we've dropped out the create permission, because you can't actually tell an article that it's allowed to create itself, so we don't have a create. But you might want to lock down the delete or the edit state, or the change the publishing state details. So at this level, one thing that will change in this widget for both the categories and the articles by the time we go stable is you won't have a list of all the groups, because you can imagine if you had a site with 100 user groups in it, this widget's going to get a little bit hard to deal with. So what will happen is we'll have the ability to add a group that you want to specifically define the permissions for, and you will be able to add a user that you can lock, change the specific permissions for. That's a little bit different from the view rights. So the view rights only work on user groups, but at the category and article level, you will be able to do it at the individual user or the user group level. So for view rights, even if you've got one person that you want, if you want only one person in your whole site to view a particular article, you're going to have to create a group for that person. But in terms of what people can edit, you will be able to lock an article down to a user group or an individual. Okay. It's very easy in the new permission system to get what you want. It's also very easy to brick your site. And by that I mean lock yourself out so that you cannot get in. And I found this by testing turning off the login permissions. So if I save that and I log out, okay, it works now because there's actually a bug allowing me to log back in. But I will just blow the sessions table away quickly. Trunk 5. Truncate that table. And hopefully this doesn't allow me to log in. It does allow me to log in. Well, that definitely is a bug. Okay. That shouldn't let me log in. So we're going to work on the assumption that it's not letting me log in. What you can do to get out of a situation where you've actually bricked your site is you can FTP up. You can FTP and edit the configuration.php file. Yes, I want to make it writable. And you just add in a line like this. I can tell the system who the root user is. So in an emergency, this person actually gets God rights over the whole site and is able to log in and do anything. So this is the emergency failsafe big red button when your client rings up and says, I've done something silly and I can't log into my site anymore. Either you or he or she can FTP in, make this addition, get the site back and limping again, and then you can remove that line at a later date. So that'll take a user ID or it'll take a username. So all you have to do is, what's your username? We'll fix it all up for you. So that's a failsafe. But I apologise that that's not working the way it's supposed to. We will fix that before it is released. Yeah. Okay. So I can now miraculously log back in, which I couldn't do before, and go and fix my permissions back up again. I forget what we had here. We could log in, we could do an allow and allow. So I can save that, and then we're right. Not quite sure why that wasn't working, because it was certainly a problem when I first discovered it. And that's really it in a nutshell. I apologise. It's very hard to start to convey this topic, and it's going to really need some good tutorials for people to start digging down into the deeper. I think you get the global level is pretty easy. We can do everything anywhere. And okay, I can get into the component and sort of lock the managers out, which is what a lot of people want to do. But when we start getting down into categories, it gets a little bit crazy trying to work out, or trying to keep track of where I've got permissions and where I haven't got permissions. Certainly opens the door for people to do analysis reports on, why is this person able to do what they're not supposed to do, or why can't they do what they should be allowed to do. And hopefully we'll get a few reports as we sort of work through some of the bugs in the system. But as I said, it's taken 4.5 years to get here. We haven't got it perfect, and but I think it's a good start. Okay, and that's yeah, so that's all I really have to cover there. Want to again thank you for your attention, and hope it a bit heavier topic this time, but I hope it inspires you to see that the flexibility of 1.6 is going to at least whet your appetite to get over some of the barriers that you've had, certainly in 1.5, and really means that you don't have to go looking for external solutions to band-aid access control issues. So, thank you.
Just going back to that, you had one of the option boxes for admin was selected. Was that the problem? Maybe if you deactivated that, would that override everything?
Yes, that was probably the problem. Now, it shouldn't, oh no, admin might. Admin might, let's, so we'll log out. Truncate, I'm just going to get rid of the session table because we store some information that might carry over. Refresh that. No, I still can't. Yeah. Don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it shouldn't allow me to do that. It's the one thing I didn't. There was a couple of things I didn't test, and that was one of them. But the point being, you've got to have some external failsafe there to be able to get back into your site, because it really is. It's obviously not as easy as it looks, but it is easy to mess up the permissions.
The other thing I was going to say is with the you had the permissions of the modules and the articles and categories and stuff, and you're saying you need to change the UI. Would it be best to remove the option box altogether? Because if you can't use the option box, it shouldn't really be there.
Exactly.
It would be better to put something in saying why you can't use it, like what's knocking it off. Because that would save a lot of confusion and a lot of forum questions.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's the way to solve that. Yep, and then you just know it's an explicit deny. Yep. So what was your PayPal number? But that's the sort of feedback we want, because actually, the irony of this of 1.6 is the access control has been finished since about last June. It's the first thing that we got right. It's just it's the categories and a whole host of other things that it's taken the time. I've got just for reference on my site, theartofjoomla.com, shameless plug. This is my technical blog where when I get time and I'm not core developing, I actually get time to write cool things. I've got an article.
It's a big article on optimising.
Okay. Introducing the new permissions in 1.6, and what we've devised is a diagrammatic way of it's not the fastest in the world. Okay, so we just got a little code here. This is an unset permission, so that implied deny. We've got an explicit allow, an explicit deny. This is an inherited allow, and this is an inherited deny. So this is just a way that we've represented all of the 4 layers and the user group inheritance. So you can see for logging into the site, we've given the manager and the register a hard allow, and then that's inherited down the user trees, the respective user trees. So I've done it in the sort of the administrator users and the public users, even though the only difference between a back-end and a front-end user now is whether they actually have admin, have the login, the respective login rights. There's no inherent, there's no hard-coded meaning to a back-end or a front-end user anymore. But you can see there's no point in having a login to a component. There's no point in what does a category do with login. It doesn't mean anything. So that's why these are greyed out. Similarly, the admin. We just give it to the manager and it's inherited on the way down. This admin action, remember at the global level, it was you get to do anything on the whole site, and that is inherited for everything else. So admin at the global level, you can do anything, anywhere. At the component level, it means you get access to that options screen, maybe some other things in different components. That does the diagrams. Admin, yep. Oh, that's right. The administrator is given a. Okay, so yeah, okay, this is where it is. Both the administrator and the manager suffer from this. So the administrator, not the manager, is given an explicit allow on certain components, which means every new component the administrator won't necessarily have immediate access to. So that's why I've said this new component that just got installed, no, you can't access that yet. So something to keep in mind. Similarly so they've got access to all of the components, or all of the, they've got access to them, so they've got the manage permission, but they don't have inherited permission to change the options of a new component. The good news is, good and bad news is most components probably won't be geared up to honour that permission, at least initially anyway. But that's something to keep in mind. There's probably ways you can rejig this to make it work the other way, so that every instant they do always they are allowed to access it. But this mirrors the 1.5 permissions as much as possible. So again, the manage action, the ability to physically access a component or in the back end, the managers, you have to physically define where the managers are. And okay, here's where we can see the create happening. A manager can create anything in a component and in a category. and obviously articles you can't create themselves, so there's no that's not a logical permission to have. And similarly, we can see the author has been given an explicit allow, and that's inherited down the group tree and inherited down to the category level. Delete, at this stage only backend are allowed to delete. Similarly, the edit action, the back end is allowed to do anything. As I said, you can curtail the back end to be able to do things. The front end, only an editor is given edit, and that inherits down to the publisher. That inherits through all the categories into all the articles. And the edit state, you can see only the publisher has been allowed the edit state. There's no group under publisher, so they don't inherit. And they can do that to all categories and all articles. But you could, for example, deny the publisher access to a certain subtree of the categories, or a particular article. So that's probably a better way of looking at what I sort of explained in words. But as I say, you can go as deep or as shallow as you want. But the deeper you go, the more tuned into the site you're going to have to be. And it's going to get harder and harder the more complex your site is. But I know people have those needs, and we've given you the power to do that. So. Probably should have included that in the main section, but anyway. Any other questions?
Sorry, I was thinking if you can lock down menus, is there just a component that you
can? You can lock down the menu manager. You can't lock down individual menus themselves. So you've got access to the menu, you've got access to manage all of the menus, or none of them. So there's we don't have this permission system in the menu manager itself like we have in the categories.
Right, so if you want a particular menu to appear only for a
well, that's driven by the modules. So the modules, and that's driven by your access levels.
In the modules?
Yeah, in the modules. So the modules are all tuned to these new access levels, so they'll honour that. So your mod main menu, which is now, we've renamed that to mod menu, the menu module can be controlled by the access level, the view access levels, but there is no granularity in I can edit a module in this position and not in this position. And likewise in the menus, there's no cascading. You get access to all the menus or none of the menus. We haven't, I guess, if it's demanded, we could look at, you can edit this menu and you can create under this menu and that sort of stuff.
The other case,
yeah. There's no difficulty in doing that, it's just that we didn't get around to it.
That would be very helpful. The business geeks is talking to a couple of, my business is talking to a couple of community customers at the moment, and they've got distributed organisations as community sort of customers sometimes do, Girls Brigade, Boys Brigade, Scouts, whatever. And so you get different divisions in different areas or different states, and you want to be able to set them up with their own area of the site. And that's not just content that can be used as well.
Yeah.
And the ACL will allow me to set up effectively groups that match to content areas, so I can do that.
Yeah.
My challenge is going to be the menus, but my challenge is also going to be the amount of work. If I've got 7 different states, at the moment there's no duplication in business there.
Probably not.
Yeah,
I'd actually have to look at the code to see how that happens.
I would love to have a whole structure and replicate.
Yeah. The good thing about this is it's the first step of claiming back the administrator, and it will take the pressure off people having to do the front end stuff, because now you can lock down areas of the back end. To be honest, you really don't want many people playing with the menu, but there's no obstacle to putting in that level of granularity, certainly. yeah.
Is there, there's a couple of things I've played with, because I've done a couple of custom products that I've customised the control panel back end, and I've created big icons and taken menu items away, renaming components and stuff like that. Is that going to be any easier to do in the 1.6 framework?
Yeah, the permission system should honour most of that.
Yeah.
I think, out of the box. One thing to note in the back end is you'll be able to get into edit screens which you think you shouldn't be able to access. But for example, a person mightn't have the rights to edit something, but they might have the rights to create it. And remember, we have that Save as Copy button. They'll be able to go into the back end. They'll actually be able to click on and seemingly be able to edit an article. But because they can't edit it, the Save button will be gone, but the Save as Copy will be, because they can actually create things. So it's a bit of a two-edged sword what we're limited to, but in the back end you get to see everything in the back end. You don't get to see, the view levels aren't necessarily honoured in the back end. The view levels are honoured in the front end, but you want to figure that the people that people that are allowed to manage content, you've got to trust them a little bit. It wouldn't be that hard to. We'd have to put a switch on, I think, to get the view levels working in the back end as well. But then it starts to get a little bit crazy. Yeah, it'd certainly be optional. The other interesting permission is edit your own work. We still haven't that's not solved in beta yet. And that's why the widget is probably going to have the go to the user level, add a specific user, and when edit your own work will actually be a business rule in content options. Which groups are allowed to edit their own content, and we probably have to fire a plug-in to get them to create this special rule. So hopefully we can get that finished in time. So yeah, I think, any more questions on that one?